Hi everyone, my name is Yetmir Troshani from Albania, and today with me I have Shane from US. I have Ivo, I call him, from Bulgaria, and Alexei from Latvia. We welcome to this Wildlife World Photographers Talks, and in today's session, essentially with Shane's suggestion, we're gonna be discussing our photography troubles as a way to share our passion and hopefully spark interest in others' future plans. Why not? So we have planned for everyone to briefly introduce themselves and then get into today's topic. So without further ado, I'll ask Shane to start. So Shane, you're welcome to take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Shane. I'm a wildlife shooter from the Northeast in the United States. So I live in Connecticut. So we're kind of between Boston and New York City, which is kind of our big claim. We're right in the middle there. We have some good stuff around us. And just as I started to travel more as an adult, I realized that I want to go places and see things. And wildlife has been a great way to do that. Instead of, traveling to like Disney World and things like that, it just kind of go to some different areas. And then I've found that I really enjoy some of those areas for different reasons than other people do that go for tourism. I've made some great friends along the way. I've had some experiences, some places I want to go back to, some places I'm kind of indifferent on going back to. And I think it's a big part of personal growth, and being able to bring my family with me on some of the trips has been good. They've gotten some culture and experience, and just kind of spark something in them as well.
That's fantastic. So I think we discussed this. So once we do an intro, everybody will do a little bit of an intro like that. We'll just start to dive. We'll have different styles of kind of starting this. Shane, you're welcome to start telling your story. Maybe how did you get involved, and then places that you've been, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
From time to time, we will ask a question or two just to learn more and then kind of have it more engaging talk, if you will.
Yeah,
Excellent.
absolutely.
So you're welcome to start to tell us a little bit about where
Okay,
you've
no,
been
I'm
and
sorry. I wasn't sure if we're going on to other
It's all good.
introductions.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, I
Okay, so
apologize.
we'll do it one by okay, right.
Yeah, so I used to shoot a lot, just kind of things, but I wasn't really into it. And then when I picked up a camera again, I kind of started shooting wildlife again and just shooting little things around the yard and then things locally to me. And then I'd see, pictures that posted online. I'm like, oh, that's awesome, and I want to go see it. So I kind of started researching how to go about doing that. I have another good friend of mine that's an awesome shooter that lives close by that travels a lot as well. So we kind of bounce ideas off of each other, places to go, things to shoot, who to shoot with, because I think a big part of traveling for photography is finding a good guide. I think sometimes when you go to a new area and you have a very limited time frame, you don't really have a lot of time to spend trying to figure out the lay of the land. And it has a value to hire someone that knows and is familiar with that. And hey, we can go here and get this. And if it's not there, we can go over here. And they have all the spots and what's currently going on in their area. And that I think is invaluable when you're trying to travel and shoot and maximize your time. In some places I'm 2 weeks, I'm going to back to Calgary to shoot with Ken Anderson, who's phenomenal. He does a lot of great gray owl stuff. So I'm going to go back and shoot with him for 3 days. But and that's the sole purpose of that trip. So it's just me going on that one. But being one-on-one with him is great. He's a good shooter. So, and we get along well. I've done a lot of different trips with him. That we've just kind of become friends. That's part of the other part of it is you start making friends, that it's not just a business relationship as much as, hey, why don't we go here? Or I want to check this out. Do you guys want to come? It opens doors to other spots. That's kind of how I was able to get into going to Quebec to shoot the puffins in the Dominican archipelagos. I kind of came up with an idea like, hey, you want to go shoot some puffins? And it's like, I just guided some people that told me about this place, and I'm going to check it out and see if it's good for me to offer a tour there. So 5 of us went and spent 3 nights on a lighthouse island by ourselves, shooting a colony of puffins. And just little things like that. Like I know it's a spot I never would have found on my own to go to. I wouldn't have had a need to go there. But photography brought it there, and it was a great few days with friends. We laughed a lot, we shot a lot. You know, just different places off the beaten path.
Absolutely. And you know what? I found that in United States versus Europe, when it comes to wildlife photography, going to different places and stuff, I found that in US it's way more expensive. I may be
Yes.
wrong,
No, no, you are very
but
right.
it's my opinion. Like, for example, we were in Hungary for 5 days, and we spent like 1,100 to 1,200 euros per person, but for 5 days, all inclusive. And I thought this, you could never do this in United States. At least that's my perspective. I may be
No,
wrong, but
you're 100% right. Like my flight to Calgary was $1,000 before I got, you know, a hotel and all that stuff on it. Like that's just me getting there.
right.
You know, and it's not an easy flight because of the way the routes are and how you have to connect through. But yeah, I mean, over here, travel it's easy, but it's not cheap. Where it feels like in Europe, because you guys have so much commuter rail and stuff like that, you can kind of move about relatively easily.
That's
Um,
interesting.
and we don't have that benefit, unfortunately. It's everything's a drive, a fly. You know, we just don't have that infrastructure, and it adds up.
Shane, I have a question.
Yeah.
What about the national parks? Do you have wildlife there?
We do. We do have in the national parks, we do have wildlife. They're usually pretty well guarded in the sense of stay on the road, don't go off road kind of things. You know, Yosemite is a big one that has a ton of wildlife, and they have, you know, the rangers come out for what they call a bear jam, because the bears will be out there, and then there's, you know, a stack of cars and nobody can get by on either side, and they'll come out and clear the bear jam. And
Yeah.
it's not bears, it's people. And then you have to police people from, you know, trying to get close with their cell phone. You know, everyone's
Yeah.
trying to get that shot, not realizing that you get in between, you know, a grizzly and her cub, and we now have a problem.
Yeah.
Um,
Shane, is it very good guarded there? So I mean,
No, I wouldn't
you
say.
can't go out some from the some pathways, or you can go in a real wildlife. I mean, or
Um,
you are allowed to do that.
In the national parks, occasionally you can. So state parks are more where you can do that kind of thing. The national parks are a whole different creature, in that regard. But like we have state forests and things like that, yeah, you can hike through there all you want and find things you're looking for. But it's time consuming to do, you know, set up trail cameras and see what you catch on it. And then you're like, oh, well, I guess that's going there. And then you're trying to find the pattern.
Yeah.
And some of it is also knowing people. Like I have a friend that lives by me that has a few hundred acres that he hunts on it. So he has trail cameras. And every now and then I'll be like, hey, I saw this on the trail camera if you want to come try and check it out.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a little bit of a networking thing. In the United States, they tend to be a little bit restrictive on things you can and can't do because we're unfortunately such a lawsuit motivated society. I think is a big part of it. Everyone's trying to protect their exposure and their liability. You know, which is very different compared to when I've traveled to other places. Like I've been places and I'm like, there's no way back home they'd ever let you do this. They wouldn't. You know, Jamaica is a spot. I wasn't there for shooting. I was there just on a recreational travel. And they have Dunn's River Falls, which is a huge waterfall that you can climb up. And I'm like, back home, like there's no way that'd have barriers all around it. Stay away from it. Someone's gonna get hurt. We're gonna have to pay money.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a different thing. We're very protective here, unfortunately. Almost to a fault, because I think there should be a little bit more freedom and leeway to do some things, especially, you know, when it comes to wildlife and shooting, like being able to go out and shoot. But I also get in the national parks, we can't have traffic jams all the time because people are, you know, getting out of their car to go see whatever and just parking in the middle of the road. Like we have to police ourselves a little bit.
Very cool. Very cool. So we'll ask now, if that's okay, Alexei from Latvia, to ask him a little bit about tell us who you are and then dive into your way of experience. How do you experience traveling?
Okay. Hello, my name is Alexei Sharipin. I'm coming from Latvia. My country is still green, still wild, and we have a lot of species okay, for our country, it's a lot of species, but you can find, yeah. I start shooting wildlife around 8 years ago, thanks to my wife. She put me in that fascinating mess. And yeah, I'm starting, have started not just from the wildlife direct, I started from the photography. I like to shoot sunsets, some
Mhm.
patterns, some people, and my wife has pulled me into the wildlife with simple traveling around our country. So we first every weekend go out of home, go into the countryside, driving in a car with some. We at the time we got just one telephoto lens to watch what we have, and the one day. Like I said, wife pulled me into this fascinating mess, and it was also an eagle. I saw one white-tailed eagle in the sky, and I was so amazed. It was so huge bird. I have never seen such a live thing with my own eyes. And this was the point when I started interested started interested in the wildlife. I started reading. I started collecting information from
Mhm.
around my area. I started watching our libraries, what we have in our area, what we have for the species, what we have in wildlife as it is. And I was so amazed that we have such a amazing fauna, and it was very rich for me, because in a city you can't see all the wildlife what we have. Yeah, in the city you can see some crowns and some common birds like I don't know what was the name, but
Yes.
in general, it was a point when I starting learning wildlife, and I started learning to shoot wildlife, and I started to travel with a piece of the wildlife in every hour trip when we go into vacation. We started the first experience in wildlife travel was in Greece, in Kirkini Lake. It was I was so amazed when I saw pelicans. I saw lesser spotted eagles. I saw flamingos. For me it was some paradise. You know, we don't have in Latvia not now flamingos, no pelicans, no other such birds like uh,
Like shorebirds, right? Like different shorebirds.
bee
Yeah,
eaters.
right.
Yeah, bee eaters, and we have now in
Oh,
Latvia
okay.
bee eaters scene, but it's not so
Okay.
common like in Kirkini or in Greece.
Yeah.
So I decided, for the next part of my life, every trip, every vacation, we will plan with some wildlife part as it should be. And here we started traveling around Europe, and I have spent 3 or 4 times in Norway, in Finland. There I have seen many posts about Finnish wildlife. Norway. In Norway, you can see white-tailed eagles from the boards. Yeah, for example, and that's such a tourist. You can imagine how close they can be there. But for me, each of my travel spots, I choosing always location with some possible to getting for the guide, because uh, if you go into another country, you just don't know the rules, you just don't know the, and
Yeah.
you should always keep that in mind, because you can break some law and you will be punished for that.
You raise a good point too, just in terms of ethics, right? Finding a
Yeah,
guide that's going to do
exactly.
it the right way versus, it's going to be, which may not be against the law there, but it's still not the way it should be done.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right, Shane. And that is why we start to learning about what we can get there, what context do we have, and we always do now so very big research before every hour trip. is nice when you spend for example 2 or 3 weeks in planning. You spend your whole vacation in the easy way and the best feelings you can get when you are just relaxed. You are concentrated on your wildlife, on your subjects. You can choose what subject do you want to shoot, and this is amazing. After first three or four trips, I started learning what I have around and deeply start
Mhm.
search what I do have, because like I said before, I started with eagles, and eagles are my favorite birds. Yeah, it was for the first time it was white-tailed eagle, but in 2017 I take a picture from the far away golden eagle, and
Yeah.
I start learning that we in our small country also have golden eagles.
Yep.
It's most northern, not northern, it's most southern place for eagles. They're nesting in the trees. Yeah.
Mhm.
Next close area to us when golden eagles nesting, it's Poland. And yeah, it's a Poland in Poland mountain region. In Lithuania and Belarus, we also have in the neighbors, the golden eagles are disappeared. There is not. So
Oh, wow.
we are the last country to the north, where to the let's say western country in the north would have golden eagles nesting in the trees in the bogs. So the under species nesting in the mountains in the Poland region and to the south for further. So in our country, I start learning what we have, and it's a very quite massive species list what I want to have in my camera. So what I want to shoot, but also there is more plans to visit some regions like Svalbard. It's in northern.
Yes, yes.
We're talking about doing an Arctic
That's another
expedition.
expensive trip.
It is.
Yeah,
But I want to do that one for the polar bears, the Arctic fox.
yeah, exactly.
You know, and my wife's kind of on board with that too, to bring the girls and let them see some of that
Beautiful.
too.
Beautiful.
Which kind of
But-
started with the idea of really wanted to go to Antarctica, but with the girls being young enough that they're in school and the timing of when they run that trip, kind of that I'd have my wife's a teacher, so they'd all have to take time off from school, which doesn't really work. So we're looking at doing the Arctic Circle, you know, doing Svalbard and Spitsbergen and you know that whole region.
And it's nice when you got your plans for your future, what countries you want to visit, what species you want to see, you can make your life more attractive, and it is what you give energy to you to going outside every time you go to some travel trips. You get some new species, for example, or you get satisfaction that you have seen the other species or other behavior of the same species what you have in your country, because the behavior of the species is also different. For example, as I know, in Sweden, not in Sweden, in Finland, we have some ducks. I don't remember the name, but we have them very sensitive. You can shoot them normal. They always getting out. Yeah, but for example, in Sweden, in Finland, you can go to get to them for 3-5 meters, and it's amazing. It's pretty amazing. The same species, but completely different behavior. It's very interesting also. So yeah, for the future also, I would like to visit Kamchatka region in Russia. Okay, now it's not the best time, but actually this one place on the earth is very magnetic for me. It's I have read about it, many books. I have seen many clips, and the Kamchatka is the one place you must visit in your life. It's like Antarctica, you know. You should visit it to see with your own eyes what they have there, and it's pretty amazing. It is, but in such a trip you should definitely take a guide and you should be guided. And yeah, for the travel, it's
Mhm.
you should be prepared. Yeah.
No,
But
I agree.
also,
And the guide thing's important kind of for all the travels, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna
So
mute you because I just want to, I don't know if I have to go yet. Hang on.
yeah, we can mute it for I mean you can always mute, go come back if need be. We can continue if that's you know you have to.
No, that's not for me.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I just wanted you to have to listen to the dispatch.
That's good.
so
But
yeah,
no, the guide I think is a big thing.
yeah, and in such a trips and such a spots, you can always make a connection with the same guided people like you.
Yeah.
You meet new people, make new friends. You can then invite them to your country, or you can go to their country and you can share the experience. It's pretty amazing because you can't like just a human being, you can't know everything in your own. You should learn something, and you always get some other people experience
Sure.
of your baggage, like you should. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is experience. So there is many places on the earth where I can want to go and see not just the wildlife, also the nature. It's beautiful, like some volcanoes or some geysers, or just mountains. Yeah, mountain
Yeah.
region. For me, like I go every time when I go to Italy to Alps, I'm totally make my mind off of the routine life, and it's something new. You can get the energy of the mountains, and
Mhm.
you can
Food
feel the,
too.
yeah, it's
I love
they,
the mountains. There's something about them that is
Yeah,
just
yeah.
yeah,
amazing when you're in them.
it is.
Very
So the travel thing in wildlife, it's when you can combine your vacation, your recreation, and like to know some uh, get knowledge about some other country, other people, other nationalities. It's very good. And like we're always discussing with the wife, we need to go in some not so popular places like everyone is doing. You need to
Mhm.
go outside of the big towns and meet some local people, because you can always check in with Facebook is a great thing. You can always check in, search for some groups, local groups, what
Yep.
they share about the wildlife, or about some good places to go where you can go to eat something, or you can go to see something, and some tips and tricks what you can use. And this is amazing. Yeah. So
Right. And actually, the Facebook group is a good thing too, because
yeah,
before I go somewhere, I'll try and figure out what people are using to shoot for equipment. Right.
yeah,
What
Yep,
do I
yep,
need to bring? Do I need my 400? Do I need my 600? Can I use a
yep.
7200? Um, because that's all part of that selection process. I can't bring everything with me.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's you kind of rely on some local knowledge and talent to kind of guide you in terms of, hey, this is what you really want to bring.
yeah, you're totally right. For us in the Europe, for example, I like to make my vacations on the wheels. Yeah, we always
Mhm.
fast always traveling with the car. So I get a car, and I
Cool.
can take my all equipment what I have, so I don't have to choose. But exactly like you said, when you need to choose what lens do you have to bring with you, or some gear or some another stuff, yeah, of course. And if you're flying, you should definitely think about it. It's yeah, it's
Yeah.
the rule.
Well, thanks for sharing, Alexei. This is great, man. Definitely a nice perspective. Now let's invite Ivo to tell us a little bit of who he is for the rest who don't know him, and then also, jump into his. He has a very exciting package of experiences. So I look forward to listen to his side of the story as well.
Okay, guys. My name is Ivo. I'm from Bulgaria. I grew up and I live in Sofia. By background, I'm general ecologist, and for last more than 25 years, if not almost close to 30 years, I'm working in conservation. With wildlife photography, I started being more seriously involved about 20 years ago when I got my first digital camera. Before that, I also tried, but the results were bad. Um, as I'm a conservationist by background, but by heart, I'm a naturalist, and wildlife always been well the most fantastic thing on earth for me. So I at some point I combined my education, my experience with my passion to shoot wildlife, to get close to the animals and birds, to try to get their behavior on my photos, and to try to use my photos for to show to the people who are not really engaged with wildlife what a treasure we have, and that to make them aware we have a lot.
Mhm.
Generally, I first years I actually spent trying to shoot birds and animals in Bulgaria. Then I expanded to the neighboring countries, but I would say that the first 10 years of my life they were devoted to the wildlife which we have here in southeastern Europe.
Hmm.
And then a bit more than 10 years ago, I went to my first trip abroad to a tropical country where the wildlife is much more abundant, much more diverse. What we have here in Europe, despite that Europe is quite rich in biodiversity, but comparing Africa to Europe is nothing. So I went to Kenya, and I was already in love with Africa through all the books and stuff I've been reading and seeing. But this was I mean, it was how do you say? There is a bug in Africa, and once it bites you, you stay crazy all your life about Africa.
That is
Just
Exactly.
for the
very
last,
true.
yeah. So I'm also very happy that my wife shares this passion. She also works in conservation, and she's also taking wildlife photos. And we started going, organizing trips to Africa. Actually, we prefer to go there alone, two of us, so that we can do a real hardcore wildlife photography, which makes it much more expensive. But when you are with a group, you have to take in consideration other people's wills. Sometimes someone gets tired, says, "Well, enough for today." The other wants to go and have a beer, but you still want to shoot, and there could be some conflict. So that's why we travel only two of us. How we do it? Actually, we search on the internet. We read all what you both Alexei and Shane said. We use Facebook. We use Google to search. We read the comments, ask questions, what kind of equipment we need there. Then we approach some local guides because if in Europe and probably in the States, you can organize it your own, you can organize it yourself, all the trip. To going to the tropics and especially to Africa, it's much more, it's harder. And it's not advisable if you are really into the hardcore wildlife photography because you will need to spend a lot of time related to logistics. You'll need to drive, you'll need to find your ways, and in Africa it's not that easy. So it is advisable that you use the local guide's knowledge. And we've been already to Kenya several times. We've been to Tanzania. We've been several times to South Africa.
Hmm.
We already established very good connections with local partners there, local companies, local guides. Um, our last experience was a very pleasant discovery. In February, we decided that we need to change a bit Africa, and we went to Sri Lanka, which turned out to be a gem. The island is rather small, but it is very diverse in biodiversity. And because of people's culture there, animals are very tame. So there is no hunting, there is no any persecution of animals. So they're everywhere. And I was really surprised that there are a lot of local wildlife photographers. So there is a culture, and local people know what it is about, because even here on the Balkans, sometimes you go to some village with your camera and local people look at you like you're some alien. What are you doing there? I mean, but not in Sri Lanka. So I definitely going to go there again.
Right.
We were very lucky that we established a very good relationship with a local guide. We met fantastic people and we visited fantastic places. Um, what is advisable in all these trips that you always need carefully to plan, especially those trips which are overseas. You need to take longer trips. You don't have enough. Always the time spending in with wildlife is never enough. But usually these trips are around 10 days, 2 weeks. More than that can get a bit tiring
Does.
and also expensive. So you have only 10 days, let's say, and then it means that you have carefully to plan when you have your itinerary, which places you're visiting, to search and read all the information available about these places so that you're prepared. What time you're going to be there, what the temperature is going to be, um, what the light will be, because it is one thing to go in the savannah in Masai Mara, for example. You, Yetmir, you know very well because you've been there in Africa. There, the light is completely different. But if you go to a wet forest like they have in Sri Lanka, then probably you might need also, besides your lens, you might need also flash.
Mm,
Uh, but
mhm.
using flash in wildlife photography is a bit controversial, could be controversial, because you should plan carefully where and how to use it and where you're not supposed to use it. Like, let's say if you have um, very shy animals or birds, or they have nearby the breeding territory, you don't want to disturb them additionally. But anyway, there are a lot of things to plan. For example, you have to be prepared for the local insects, or in Sri Lanka they have a parts which are called leech country. So you need your special socks for against leeches for walking in the forest. Otherwise, they will get on you just in 15 minutes. There will be many on your legs.
Hmm.
Um, about the food, about what else? About the transportation, and you need carefully to plan what kind of equipment you need to take with you, what kind of gear, because you know, guys, that flying allows you limited luggage on board. So
Mhm.
usually you cannot take all the gear. You have to plan very well, and well, I always travel with excessive, well, or at least excessive luggage than these, which is allowed in the cabin. But so far, I had no issues. Once or twice, they tried to point out that, well, it's too heavy. I said, well, it's very expensive equipment. We are photographers. Oh, really? Okay, then please proceed. Then it comes to visas, to plan in advance, to have your all your documents. So a lot of things, but I think this is kind of all this pleasure, um, which is related to overseas travels for wildlife photography. And there are different kinds of travels, of course, depending on what people want to do. Some people want it to be lighter, to have time for the beach, to go rest there, and maybe next day they can go and shoot in the morning, but the afternoon just relax. Me and Yana, we go for hardcore. Means every day we're trying to use all light hours to find the birds, to find the animals, to enjoy nature, and to take as many photos possible.
Right, and that's part of the adventure in itself.
This
Mhm.
is briefly.
Yes, it's great, man. And by the way, did you say that you're doing this for 30 years? Or did you
I said that
or I heard it wrong? Uh-huh.
I'm engaged in conservation. That
Right,
about
in the conservation. The reason why I'm
But
asking, okay, go ahead.
with more devoted and serious attitude towards wildlife photography. I'm
Right.
already about 20 years because I started 2004 when I got my first digital camera.
Right. I asked that because you obviously had a prior career, as you mentioned as well, but you look very young, man. So I guess it has something to do with Bulgarian water. There is something he has this name. You know what I mean? The water in Bulgaria is one of the best in the.
Well, I don't know what it is related, but I was born with the passion about wildlife. And I have
Uh-huh.
to admit that when I started with wildlife photographer in the country, we were like no more than 10 people, like something like that. And we knew each other either from the
That's right.
university,
Yes,
we were
yes.
colleagues, or they were also working with conservation.
Yeah.
So, but nowadays the situation is completely different. There are hundreds of people whom I don't
Yes.
know, and I just see their photos online when
Yes,
they
yes.
post in groups, comment
Yes.
or whatever, which is great actually, because more and more people
It is, yes.
are seeing the beauty of nature and are preserving it and not just ignoring it or
Yeah.
harming it.
It's right. You, for example, you can protect only that thing what you definitely know. If you don't know that in that forest, some, for
Yes.
example,
Absolutely, yes.
breeding some eagle, you just cutting that forest off and you destroy it. So yeah, you should do your wildlife photography during your vision and explain to people what we are really have in that forest, in the nature. And it is great that more and more people involving themselves in that thing. Yeah, it's very great hobby. For example, I have for today I sell my old gear. It was a Nikon D500 and 200-500 lens for one guy who is the new one to the wildlife, but he was so amazed that he saw some falcon,
That's it.
little.
It's mesmerizing. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's he is so excited. He said,
Yes.
now I need to think what I should what I should reading or what where I go next." And it is actually great. And this is one of the ways so to also to protect nature, because if you got to choose, if you, for example, hunting for passion, yeah, it's for the sport. You like a hunter, yeah. You're going shooting for the roe deers or red deer. But instead, if you take in your gear and make a photo of that red deer or roe deer, you get the same result. You get your trophy, but everyone is healthy and
Yeah.
by the living. Yeah, it's great.
Right, and you raise a good point because humans are a threat to some of these animals.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at rhinos that we've poached to extinction,
Yeah.
you know, polar bears are losing their habitat because of climate change and
Mm.
you know, a variety of factors. You know, if we can take pictures and make people aware, or at least make them take a little pause, maybe it triggers something in them and then they get involved.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we are, with my wife, we are also for the third time, we are now visiting every time wildlife world photographer. It's the London Natural History Museum, making that concourse the best wildlife photographer of the year.
Mhm.
And we are now every November we are going to London to visit in the presence that exhibition. And this year was just one of the amazing photos when you, like you said, the white polar bears losing the habitats because of the climate change. And there was like if I correct remember, it was a People Choice Award with that bear who's laying on the small piece of iceberg and
Yep.
sleeping. Yeah, it was just fantastic shot. It was amazing. It has really gotten through me for my hair, and it was just great. And it is so, yeah. It's really nice that you can show the tiny thing what you can lose in our environment at all. With the photos, you can join more and more people to protect that thing, and yeah, it's
And that's so important. You know, next year when we go back to Africa, we've actually added Kenya to our itinerary.
Mm.
We're going to bring our daughters to spend a couple nights in a tribal camp, and then we're going to go see the last 2 living northern white rhinos.
yeah.
Cool.
Wahida, right? So like when they get to stand there and see the last of the species, and it's essentially too late for them because all we have are females now, and you know they're just waiting to
So
become fully
you're
extinct.
going to visit Old Pajeta.
Yes. Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, we're
I've
going
been to the area, yes.
Have you?
Well, not exactly into the reserve, but around it.
Yeah,
We
we're gonna
pass
go.
close to it.
Yeah, we're gonna go to the reserve because when we had that, they were like, "Oh, you guys can go do this." I'm like, that's got a big value for the girls to see, like, stand there and see the last of something and see what
Mhm.
we do to it. You know, and hopefully it triggers something in them so that even if they don't really go totally down that rabbit hole, they're at least a little bit more aware of environmental things and cause and effect and
Yeah.
things like that. You know, and you can talk about the fact that, yeah, these are last 2, but I think it's different when you're standing there and you're seeing them.
Mhm.
It is.
Well, this is great, man. Thank you so much. And Shane, I'll cover also my segment. But before I get to my introduction, I'll start from the end because it made sense what you said. You're planning to take your daughters next year. I'm planning to take my daughter this year. And so I think it's exciting because, you know, the exposure, I believe in exposure. I see a lot of, you know, there is so much to see from being in Africa. To me, when I went to Africa last time, it was like almost a completely unplugged experience from everything I knew. That just a new world that was in front of me with everything, right? So it was very good, like how we see things. So I'm looking forward to see her. And I'm looking forward to take her to see Kenya, right? That's it's very exciting. But as a short bio, I was born in Albania. My name is Yetmir Troshani for the viewers. I was born in Albania and in the city where it's very artistic. So I guess I have a little bit of push from the area. I mean, from that area, because later on I studied guitar, and then in 1997 I came to US. I kind of lost the artistic side completely per se. So I went to school and then eventually became project manager and a lecturer at the City University of New York, where I'm now currently working. But in 2016, I started getting with the photography and I started with long exposure. But then I realized that was very achieved, at least from my perspective, of course, was achieved, but it was very technical. And I was looking for something challenging yet artistic to merge with as far as my passion goes. And then there was in Kosovo, there was this group, and a little bit before that, actually, wildlife photography kind of started to pop up, I think, at least in my eyes, right? From my window. Before, I thought nobody photographs, you know, I didn't know that there was such a thing, to be honest, that people were interested in photographing birds. I knew about birders and people who studied birds and animals. That's different. The beautiful documentaries. So, but to have people passion related to photograph, I just didn't, you know. But then it kind of started to show up, you know. And then I started photographing. I started in New York, obviously. So the very beginning, right before that, even I saw that getting close to nature was something that I liked. I realized the peace that I gained from nature that I didn't know then, but then later I started reflecting that being in nature is helping me a lot to balance my life also from the personal perspective, work-wise, family-wise, and you know, things that were happening in my life. And going more out there, it made me feel better in here, you know, that kind of thing. So,
Mhm.
so it was my artistic approach and trying to find a genre that brought me to nature and to birds and animals in general. So that's my introduction in a sense. But and then as I started photographing and stuff, I started connecting with my childhood also, where I grew up with my grandmother, where I was connected with a lot of animal, kind of like domestic animal, but I was also always very in tune with that part. So that was great. And I said, you know what? I found it. I found it. I found my hobby per se. You know, and obviously, as you folks know, I mean, challenging, it just never stops there. You cannot control life. You cannot control, I mean, lights, brother. Life also, you cannot necessarily. The light, it's hard to be controlled. I mean, because you're in nature. The subject also, you never know if they're going to show up. I mean, you
Right.
guys have been in places twice and you never saw the same subject. It changes. So to me, that challenge was something that added to it. So essentially started in New York, Central Park, also Jamaica Wildlife Refuge. It's a nice place that you can walk around, photograph. You know, it's very nice. And then from there, kind of like started step by step. And what's happening, to me at least, is that as I'm traveling more, the desire to photograph locally, it's diminishing a little bit
Ah.
for me.
I have the same problem. I'm like,
It's very interesting, right? So it's good to have these conversations with you folks, because you start to kind of touch points like, how do you feel about that? Is that happening with you as well, or is it just me? Or like it's interesting to see in here. So I made a short list here just to go over quickly. So after New York was New Jersey, right? There are some very nice wildlife refuges in New Jersey as well, like Cape May, Sandy Hook, Edwin, Forsyth National Wildlife Refuge. Beautiful. I like that, this last one that I just mentioned, because you can draw, you can go in, you can drive, photograph, you're not bothering, right? That's what happened also in Kenya. You drive usually.
yep.
At least what my experience was. You were driving, and you're not bothering the subjects outside, and you can see that you're not bothering because they're not bothered at all. I'm not even sure they see you
Right. And
inside of the car.
it's interesting you say
Yeah.
that, because when we were in Africa, we asked how we can get so close to the animals.
Yes.
And he actually had a great answer, because he said that anytime anything happens on the reserve, from the minute these animals are born, they know about them, and the Jeeps are on them. And as long as you stay in the Jeep, don't stand up, don't hang out of it, make the Jeep look like a Jeep, it is just another creature in their world, and they pay no attention to it. You know,
That's
versus
amazing. Yes.
if you hang out in the Jeep or stand up and all of a sudden it doesn't look like the Jeep anymore that they're used to seeing, now they start changing their behaviors. And it's just, they get so accustomed to certain things, you're just part of their universe more than they're a part of yours.
100%. So these differences, right? Like based on how you photograph locally versus how you photograph in different places, really adding experiences, and all of these experiences are actually adding to your passion. Your passion, it's getting richer, if you will. At least that's how I experience it. And then yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, but sorry for interrupting.
No, for you.
There are different. My observation is that in different continents, wildlife photographers have different preferences. Of course, they're also related to how tame is the wildlife and how easy you can approach it. But for example, I believe that quite a lot of the European photographers, they prefer, and if probably there are many of them who shoot wildlife only from heights. Yes, and I admit that in Europe it's not easy to shoot wildlife if you don't have heights, but it is possible, and it's a really challenging, and I would say it's really nice. I really like it. But for example, on other places, like even in Sri Lanka, they don't use hides at all. They're always after the leopards there or some other special animals there, and nobody's using hides. Same for the States, I think, Shane.
Yeah, they don't use.
There are very few hides there. Most
Yeah,
of
we don't really use a lot of
they
them.
just find their object, try to approach it, make a setup, and and shoot it.
And I think here in the United States, part of the hide thing is people don't have a lot of patience to sit and wait. They want to go somewhere where they can go find it and get what they want and then go on to the next thing that they're after. You know, and shooting from a hide takes a certain degree of patience to get out there, to set
Yes.
it up, to sit in it,
Yes.
Yes,
and
I
to
have
look at
spent almost 3
same
days without
scene for
exiting the
hours.
hide, so I know very well.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's just,
Hide is a different world. Yeah.
it is. It is. You have to be comfortable being by yourself a little bit and, you know, staying in that little bubble because you can't get out of it easily. Or I mean, you can, but then you kind of defeat the purpose of having it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a whole thing. And then also, you know, the expense of getting one, getting it set up, taking it with you. I think it adds a lot of layers that a lot of people just don't tolerate here.
Yeah,
And
exactly. But I think the main problem maybe in the Europe, the reason why you can't normally shoot some raptors, for example, without hide, is because of genetic memory. Like I
Oh, yes.
suppose it can be because in the Europe, in the our part of the Europe, for example, white-tailed eagles was by extinction from 80s, and starting from the 80s, 85.
even earlier because of the usage of DDT. Yeah, in the
Yeah,
60s.
yeah. And not only DDT, but also for the hunting. The birds were
Yeah, they always have been
yeah,
persecuted by people. Yes.
and the genetic memory makes them so drastically sensitive for the humans that you just can't approach to them for the normal picture. You can see them, but around 200-300 meters away.
And they're
Or-
more aware of you than you are of them. They know you're there long before you know they are.
Exactly. You don't see them, but they saw you already, and they is always gone. Yeah.
They're already changing their behavior. And you raise an interesting point about what we do to the animals in their behavior and stuff. Like I know here, because we keep constantly expanding our communities and our infrastructure, and we take away their habitat. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, there's so many deer that we have to now hunt them because, you know, they're getting in the way of things. And it's not that there's more deer, it's that we have pushed them into a smaller space
Smaller area.
of theirs, and they're just trying to do their thing to survive.
Exactly.
Every
It is.
animal needs a certain space to survive on its own. And when we start condensing them down because of our human expansion, you know, it's absolutely something we are doing to the wildlife.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, as you guys are talking about different perspectives, there are like so many ideas coming in my mind. And that's why I really love this photography, because there are so many perspectives. We can talk about, we could have this conversation today only in raptors, or only in light, or only in like specific things, because they're so depthy so I really love it. Like, for example, it is so true that in many places of Europe, photographing raptors is almost impossible. But then you go to Kenya, you see buzzards and eagles, like they are right there. They are not bothered at all. Like, I don't know if it's like they are the land that we're sharing as humans in Europe, or are we not letting much space for them to be free? Versus in Kenya, there's more space. I'm not sure if that's the case, but it's like the behavior of the raptors and the animals behave completely different versus in different parts of the world. So as you guys are talking about these things, boom, things are popping up in my mind, which I kind of think when I am out shooting, and then they kind of stay there, the memories, but these meetings and these conversations like bring them back. So I think it's very interesting that we we need to do this more often, I think, for different topics, because it's not
Absolutely.
only fun, but I think you just that sharing part with others. But going back to my beginning, so 2017, 2018, I started expanding to New Jersey, but and then Florida, I have family there. I was Florida, it's another gem, in my opinion. Photographing birds, no need hides, no need, you don't need them. They're there, everything. Ospreys, like ospreys are all over the place. I mean, in Florida, we're talking about just what do you have in like the sparrows in Bulgaria and all over the world. Yes, ospreys in Florida, which you kick drum and they're all over. So you
Like,
obviously you're gonna.
I would give another example, like storks. in Europe,
Okay.
and,
That's,
Yeah,
and especially in
like
Southern
storks,
Europe, like
exactly.
storks, nests everywhere on close
Yes.
to houses, villages, and so on.
and
White,
so
white,
it's
white
it's
storks.
very
White
it's
storks.
White storks.
it's very unique, right? The white. So yeah, so this was 2000, so the 2017, 18, 19 happening, New York, New Jersey, Florida, different spots. And then I went back home, Albania, and that's unknowingly at the moment, but later I realized that photographing there was very difficult. Like everything was very distant. The birds are afraid, like there is afraid. I'm just not realizing it at the moment. So in 2019, I'm not realizing it. Like I'm assuming that 50 meters, 100 meters, they shouldn't be bothered. Forget it. Even farther, they see you, they go, you know.
Mhm.
And then later on, I'm starting to realize that Albania is a small country. It's very small country. So obviously, maybe, I mean, the people need to live there as well. So you cannot just, you know, trash the fact that people don't care about. I don't think that's the case only. I think that it's they need to live as well. They need to drive to work. They need to earn
Yeah.
everything. It's a small country, so creating, because obviously wildlife needs space, needs quiet, right? Just like in Kenya, for example, the rich people will purchase hectares of space land and then just let it open only for the wildlife to later come and populate it.
Mhm.
So we cannot do that because there is, you know, there is so much space that you need to live as well. And so I started kind of like seeing things different. But definitely in Europe, to have a field photography versus United States or Africa, it's very different, right? It's very difficult in Europe, at least, you know, just to walk and then get, you know, you'll get lucky. I'm not sure. I mean, the quality, again, like personally, again, I started with the artistic purpose drove me to this photography. So I'm kind of looking a little bit towards that. So I didn't want to document necessarily. I want to achieve a certain look. And
Mhm.
that's a personal take, right? So I might take a small bird who is 100 meters away, but I'm never going to post it. I'm never going to, I'm just, it's going to stay in archive. It's just that is. So to me, I may take thousands of pictures, but maybe 5 or 6 or 10 will go out
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Facebook or
Yeah.
my personal page, and that's how it is. So in Albania was very challenging to photograph, and then I realized that you definitely need the boat, right, to go, and then I was starting to learn as well, and you know, the species, working with birders who helped us a lot, and then in Kosovo as well, like the mountain of Rogova, you know, you can shoot deer, you can photograph deer rather. You can photograph deer, you can photograph, I have the list here because I wanted to mention some things. Okay. So deer, boar, bear, right? But the infrastructure, it's not quite there. That's another thing, right? The infrastructure. Because again, what we like to do, it seems that it's very early. Like I think wildlife photography, from the perspective of as a hobby, I think it's an early thing. Like I think it's about like when the lens is developed and the cameras developed, that's when we start, like the people had the opportunity to also photograph, and then they started getting it. But I noticed that a lot of people who photograph in specific genres, they switched for wildlife photography. And I think it has to do with the challenge, I think, and with so much you can learn, so much you can visit, and the nature in the end, just being close with the nature. Like, for example, I asked Bogdan, the guy from Bulgaria, you know, I asked him in one of the interviews we had, Bogdan Boev, right? That's his name. I said, what enriches your hobby? And he said, you know what? It's easy. He said, I just get out in the nature. And I'm like, oh my God, that's it. Really? It's that, just that simple. Really.
That's it at its core.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because you just, that openness, right? The water, the sky, the openness. There is something there, right? That you just find a peace in it. So that was so good. Very good answer.
And every time it's going to be different.
And every time it somehow is different. How about that?
And
Yes.
every time you expect something new to happen. So
Yes.
it keeps the excitement.
Absolutely.
There's
So
an anticipation that comes with that.
Yeah.
With waiting for it to happen.
It's
So-
also
Well, wildlife
when it-
photography without patience is
yes, that's
probably
right.
a landscape photography
Absolutely.
or something else.
That's right.
Yes.
So I am now, it's 2019, so far only field photography, walking, heavy, and I started realizing also the lens can be heavy. I'm starting to see my gear also different. So I'm kind of thinking maybe I need to look at the lighter gear. So technology moved on and so they started offering, and as you remember, before 2018, gears were heavier.
Mhm.
Sigma, Tamron, right? Even like the cheaper, okay, or even like the 800, 600 millimeter Nikon, and they were expensive stuff and very heavy stuff, you know. So, and
Yeah.
then thankfully, you know, I think they were looking at the fact that more and more people are getting into, so the prices gotten cheaper, the gear got lighter, you know. So that was good. So I started switching a little bit perspective in that as well. I think it's worth mentioning it, that the gear, heavy gear, you guys mentioned it as well. Heavy gear make it very difficult for field photography. 2-3 hours, the fourth hour, you're really feeling it. You know, if you keep walking.
Oh, yeah.
So my first hot photography was Bulgaria, Sofia, Punar Mountain, or Golden Eagle, right? That was just such a
Yeah, the hike in
feeling.
Eastern Alps, yes.
That's right. So we went in December, Ivo, of 2019. We went there. And we went for like few days, 3 days all together. We actually, the first day we photographed what we wanted to photograph and just left. We just, you know,
Got it. We can go.
that's we can, yes. We agreed with, I was there with Garnit, another friend of mine, who we photograph, and he's the founder of many Albanian movements and Kosovo movement related to wildlife photography. He's a best friend. So we went there. So my first high photography, and I love it, right? We photographed the Golden Eagle. We were able to, you know, have a very nice, the subject was maybe 40, 50 meters with a 600 millimeters. You could photograph them beautifully. And it was snowy. It was beautiful. So that was the first experience in the hide. And I was like, oh, hold on 1 second. I could take pictures like this of amazing subjects like this. Forget about photographing a Golden Eagle. You walk away, yeah, you walk and you can photograph. It just doesn't happen. I don't know if
Yeah.
what your thoughts are, but it just, I mean, in Africa, yes, if it's like the African eagle, you can.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
we were driving an African eagle, but just right there. So I have like, whoa, I'm like 80 meters away or 100 meters away. You know, that's great. But a golden eagle, I don't know, you couldn't. So that was very exciting. And then Kenya was 2000, and so it was COVID, right? 2020, COVID came, so we all, well, it was horrible. Horrible and good in a way. Horrible at the beginning, but for us, I think everything got quiet, and I went back home to Albania, and nobody would get out. Meaning people would get out. They didn't, to be honest, they didn't care / believe it 100% because they just got out. Although I was getting out too, but I was getting out in these open places where there's nobody. So it was just the perfect thing to do. And we are talking about in late 2021 now, right? Which is COVID. It's starting to, you know, and then beginning of 2022, which is still, right? But so, and then in February 2022, with a group of 12 of us, we go to Kenya. I mean, that was just another, I mean, from my perspective, I thought I photographed, I've seen, and that was nothing. A new world began, like, of photography. It was completely different. So we went to Masai Mara. I have it written here. I'm gonna, just so I don't forget them. Nairobi National Park, Lake Nakuru, Lake Elementata, Lake Naivasha. I was able to photograph the big five, which was like one of the purpose of the trip. You know, the leopard, rhino, lion, buffalo, and elephant. So that was fantastic. And as the first time, I thought that was very successful trip. However, when I came back, I always reflect, right? I always reflect. I found some issues with the trip. Like, for example, we were constantly in the car driving from the window. So, and then we were sometimes get early in the nice light, sometimes not. So I started to, and as I'm also learning more from the photography, I started thinking that I wish I could have an open car, for example, right? Where you can photograph from different angles, even, or for example, I wish the people who are, the guide was also a photographer, because if he is a photographer, he knows the importance of light and how to position you, for example.
That is huge.
It's huge, you know, and then somebody who doesn't necessarily who doesn't exercise this photography doesn't necessarily know, and that's completely normal. He's just thinking like, I just want to make sure that I show numbers. More
Right.
numbers, the better. I mean, I think that's great. I think that's great. But as you start getting into the photography, I think you want to get into more the mood of the, you know, like the scene that you're photographing and all of that. So I started thinking about those things, kind of missed per se. We saw a lot of things, we drove a lot, and it was also so tiring because constantly driving. That's another thing that I realized that if I do it again, I would stay in one place, have a focus in that one place, and photograph, and then take advantage of all different lights that I can possibly experience, all different places, all different positionings and stuff like that. So that kind of like stayed in my mind. And then later on, we went to Romania that 2022 June. Romania was great. We went to Danube Delta near near the Black Sea, right? Where it actually ends, Danube Delta ends, right? It was just beautiful place and everything. But there I realized that you need to have a boat to photograph. Actually, you can, you know, so we would take a boat, go photograph. Birds were very, you know, we were not scared really. You could go in a very good distance where you can, so it was very, very nice. And then in 2022, that year, in December, we went to Valencia for 5-6 days with my friends. We photographed raptors. It was great. Again, hide photography. But I'm starting to think that naturally, I'm starting divorcing with the way I photographed. And I started realizing that the way I'm photographing now, the images that I'm producing versus the way I photographed back then, where I was, you know, the images that I was producing had a big difference. So now I have this standard of photography that I'm reaching out, but to reach that, you need to have that right distance and you don't want to bother also the subjects. You want to keep the light, you know, so I'm constantly thinking. So I appreciate height for the fact that you can achieve very artistic shots, you know, you can control, you know, a lot of things. But also I'm kind of thinking like, if I go somewhere else, I need to think about how can I limit the distance to the subjects, be that a boat or be that wherever the way I photograph, but that I have the opportunity to generate some images that I'm after, right? Always making sure at all costs to not bother, and that's one of our key conversations that we have with the guides that we do. So Valencia was great. We had some amazing images. Hungary in June 2023. Hungary was another experience to me in Europe, one of the best. And to be honest, when I go to these places, I've started to look not only photography, but I would appreciate also if other elements of this experience are up to par. Things like it's the guide knowledgeable. It's like sometimes in Europe they will just put you in the hide and you don't. That's it. You don't need anybody. But if the sleeping conditions, the food, the communication of the, you know, can you ask questions and get those answers? So Hungary was really top. I had a great experience in Hungary and also in speeches that we photographed. So, and the food was amazing, and the sleeping like everything just came together to that. And then last year in Spain, which was 2023, I went to Madrid, Spain. Again, raptors once again. And I'm not happy to report, but Spain kind of did not meet the full expectations per se. We were able to photograph, but for example, we had a hard time to communicate with the hides. That's why, I mean, with the tour guide, with the person who was taking, the guy didn't speak English at all. And we wanted to ask questions. Obviously, you have so many questions, which, you know, you also asked before, but then questions come up when you're there. We are 6 of us. You want to know and stuff, and you can. So little things like that, like sleeping conditions or organizations, where do we eat? It was like in the last moment. And to me, maybe because of my profession, being a project manager, and I want to organize everything. And I don't, you know what I mean? And to be honest, when you are with friends and family abroad, you do not want surprises. That's, you know, you want to have a nice, safe, you want to make sure everybody's fed,
Absolutely.
sleeping condition is good, especially now you are with kids.
Sorry
So,
for
I mean, these are
interrupting you, but-
important things. Huh?
I'm sorry
It's
for
important.
interrupting you,
Go
but there is
ahead.
something urgent and I need to get out.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Definitely
Sorry,
understand
guys.
that. Absolutely. All
Sorry,
all the
guys.
best. It's all,
Yeah.
it's
Thank you,
all
Ivy.
good.
It's a pleasure.
We're almost ending it anyway. Take care. And then, so that was Spain, a little bit disorganized in my opinion. This trip should be, as you said, very, very well organized. And then, lastly, now we are in 2024. I look forward to go to Kenya, as I mentioned, right? That's where I started, where
Yeah.
I'm taking my daughter, and I changed a little bit. So the place where I'm going now, it's being run by professional award-winning photographers. So that changes things, right? Essentially, I'm expecting that not only I'm going to be taken in certain places, but also I'm going to be taken in places where the photo, like the subject are positioned in a certain way, which I can have opportunities to photo, not simply document a species, but also picture something that it satisfies my appetite for the photography, if you will.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah,
very
you're absolutely right, Jetmer, because I think, in my opinion, you can get the perfect guide only if that guide is a photographer himself. When he understands the light, when he understands the behavior of the species, when he understands your needs like a photographer, he can provide everything what you need like a photographer. It's the best way. I think it's the best way when you have such a photographer with you on the side, like a guide. It's best.
I
It's the
actually like when the guide is shooting alongside me, because then I know
Oh,
he's
that's even,
looking
yeah.
for the same thing, right? Like he's not there just to give me the experience. He's trying to capture something from it too. So I know we're not leaving anything on the table as far as, hey,
Yeah.
maybe we should have done this, we could have done that. You know, because he's engaged in actively making images or video or whatever he's doing. You know, you can kind of feed off of that a little bit or bounce ideas off. Or, you know, I've been shooting with a guy, and then all of a sudden they'll just kind of go over somewhere. I'm like, I didn't even think of grabbing that angle. And then
exactly.
I'm gonna, you know, just go right over there with them, and you know, and I think that has a huge value to it. It really does.
Absolutely. And it's, you also learn from different experience, right? They obviously have seen many things, so you learn a lot from it.
Mhm.
Because another thing that it's important for people to understand, it's that these trips are expensive. They take time also organizing, so you cannot just do them so often per se.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you really want to be able to, okay, since that I'm, you know, maybe money it's involved, organization it's involved, you really want to take the best out of it. And especially for us, where we have laser sharp focus also in photography. Yes, you can photograph generally, but you want those moments, you want those right hours from the right people to show you where the right places are. Because obviously I never been to your place. If you come to New York, I know where to take you. I know,
Right.
like for example, I know that April, end of April, beginning of May, and almost the whole May, it's the best time to come, at least in New York and in New Jersey shores. That, you know,
Mhm.
I know that. I mean, the breeding time starts. You can have a very nice distance where there are no bollard, but because they are so active and they create a predicament on with, you know, the time that they keep coming, so you
Yep.
have the opportunity to frame the right pictures. I did not analyze everything as I analyze now. Therefore, having somebody who is a photographer hand holding you, if you will, a little bit, it helps tremendously on the end result, and the experience is so great. So you just, and that's wonderful.
You know, and if it's a good experience, like when I went to Africa with my wife, when we went last year, it was just her and I. We didn't bring the girls. Within a couple days of being there, she was like, "We need to bring the girls."
That's it.
And that whole trip started because she's like, "You can go to Africa if we go on another honeymoon." I'm like, "Well, why don't we just put them both together? Like, even if you're not looking for
Yeah.
pictures, seeing the big animals in the wild is amazing." You know, so she was on board with it, and we went. She's like, "We need to bring the girls," and it got something going in her because, one, it was a place she wanted to go back to, And two, she's a teacher. She teaches kindergarten here back
Mhm.
home. She and the school that she's in, the kids kind of get to pick what they want to learn about, and then she has to incorporate lessons into it.
Cool.
So telling the kids about her trip, they went down this big five rabbit hole. And they spent half the year learning about the big five while tying it into math and
How
writing
about that?
and all these
Cool.
other things. You know, so it definitely takes a hold. And I think a big part of that was the experience of the guides and things like that to deliver on an experience that was good for me as a photographer and good for her as just someone that wanted to see some animals.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we covered a lot of ground today. And Shane, Alexei, thank you so much. Thank you also to Ivo. But we hope we do this again. You know, we hope we really like maybe different topic, different things that we can come up, and then we learn so much from each other with respect to places
Exactly.
that we've been. I learned so much today as well, and I hope our viewers will as well. Please feel free to also ask questions. I'm sure Shane will be able to answer if there are questions related to the topics that we cover. Same thing with Alexei and Ivo. So with that said, all the best and until next time.
Until next
Thank you
time.
so
Bye
much.
bye. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
guys.